Yes.
Yes. Good morning, Commissioners. TIGM, a company based in Southern California, approached RTC staff requesting to provide a demonstration of one of its rail vehicles. TIGM manufactures electric rail trolleys powered with onboard batteries and hydrogen fuel cells. Now, live demonstrations of potential rail transit vehicles would be useful for the analysis of potential transit vehicles that will be part of the alternatives analysis that the RTC is undertaking for high-capacity transit on the Santa Cruz Branch rail line. So TIGM is proposing to run its demonstration as early as November, but depending on the required approvals from the Federal Railroad Administration, it could be potentially in the spring of 2020. Now, the exact track segments for the demonstration will not be known until TIGM performs an inspection to determine that there is track meeting FRA safety standards for the demonstration, and TIGM will actually be doing inspections tomorrow of RTC track. And RTC staff will be participating in those inspections. It is anticipated that the potential demonstration would start at the Santa Cruz Boardwalk, and TIGM has already been in conversations with the FRA to make sure that they can meet all the necessary requirements for such a demonstration. Now, Brad Reid, president of TIGM, is here with us today, and he will make a presentation on TIGM's rail vehicles and their proposed potential demonstration. Now, if inspections and the FRA determine that there is suitable track available for this demonstration, then RTC staff will come back to you with potential temporary license for TIGM to run that demonstration. So with that, I'll hand it over to Mr. Brad Reid to make the presentation.
How you doing?
Welcome, and thank you for your patience.
Good morning, Commissioners. I think it's still morning. My name is Mark Johannesson. I'm a resident of Aptos and have a law practice and consulting business in the city of Santa Cruz. I'm here with Brad Reid to present a proposal to demonstrate the streetcar that Mr. Mendez mentioned, which has the potential to achieve the high-capacity public transit goals along the branch line, and also be fully compatible with competing uses of the track, including bike and pedestrian use, and also complementary to services that Metro provides in the region. So as Mr. Reid will explain after me, these streetcars are lightweight, quiet. They're about the size of a bus. They're ADA compliant. They do not use overhead wiring, and they're powered by batteries with a top-off generator, which is a fuel cell generator, which allows it to be in service for 20 hours a day. So for those of you who do not know what fuel cell technology is, it's the same technology that's used by Toyota in their Mirai vehicle, Honda with its Clarity vehicle, and Hyundai with its Nexo vehicles. The only emission from these devices is water. Now, considering that the area receives 100% green power from the Monterey Bay Community Power, these streetcars have the potential to be 100% zero carbon, 100% zero emission. So TIGM is a California company based in Chatsworth and manufactures modern off-wire streetcars, and these are called streetcars or trolleys. There's a number of different names. And they also are an operator of these systems. And as you know, the Commission, there is a track licensing agreement with Progressive, and Progressive currently has freight operations in the Watsonville area. Phase 2 of that license requires provision of passenger service, and I believe it's 5,000 passengers per year. This type of technology, high-capacity commuter vehicles, would allow that goal to be achieved. Each of TIG's vehicles can carry between 100 to 200 passengers, depending on the configuration, and they can also be configured to accommodate bicycle racks. The proposal is to demonstrate the use of this streetcar as passenger service, as Mr. Mendez mentioned, either later this year, early spring. A lot of it depends on getting the FRA approval. We've already reached out to the FRA, and it's going to require a waiver. A lot of that will require the track inspection that we're going to be having over the next few days to see exactly what portion of the track can do this. Now, these vehicles are going to be, the vehicle is going to be brought in on a truck, and it's just going to be laid on the track. So the idea would be to find the place where an active demonstration can occur. There's also a possibility of moving the car without people to areas where possibly an active demonstration can't occur, but maybe a open house type demonstration can occur, for example, in Aptos Village or Seascape. So unfortunately, the demonstration will not include a demonstration in Watsonville. because of the agreement with Progressive. Progressive is operating freight along that line, and there's no way to operate a passenger system along that line at this point. In addition, there's a washout on part of the track that precludes any kind of rail activity between Wausau and Santa Cruz, which is actually would help with the FRA approval to have the demonstration run this side, because there's a physical barrier there. So the commission approves moving forward with this project, and we're going to be doing a track inspection with commission staff, and then we'll work with staff to determine the exact location of the demonstration. It is anticipated that this, as Mr. Mendez mentioned, the project will come back to the commission for ultimate approval. We've also been in contact with Roaring Camp and the Seaside Company, and we do not anticipate that this will impede their operations at all. In fact, that's why I think the timing, late fall to spring, particularly in terms of Roaring Camp's operation, will not, it'll be compatible with. In fact, we think that this operation, the ultimate streetcar operation on this line, would be actually a welcome service to both of those organizations. So the proposal is to have a demonstration over one of two periods, either a 13-day period, which would include 2 weekends, or a 27-day period, which would be over 4 weekends, and that's to be determined. The cost of the demonstration is going to be borne by TIGM, and we're going to reach out to local sponsors to help sponsor this. So we hope that this demonstration will allow the commissioners to get a close look and feel of what this type of high-density public transit would look on this line and how it fits in with the community. It'll give the commissioners a sense of the modest size of the vehicle and in the context of the surrounding, and how this type of fixed rail vehicle would be compatible with the competing uses of the rail. And timing, I think, is also good, because I understand the next agenda item is the creation of an ad hoc commission or committee to look at the alternative analysis. This would give the opportunity for the commissioners on that commission to receive data on how this would fit in with that alternative analysis. So there's a number of details we have to work out, including the FRA approvals. We do not anticipate any roadblocks at this point. So Mr. Reid and I will be available for questions should the commissioners want that. And now Mr. Reid will present information on TIGM, their development of these vehicles, and also their experience in operating these type of vehicles in dense urban settings.
Thank you. You want a question of the speaker? I was going to let them both present, and then we'll come back. We'll both present, and we'll have questions for you. Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. My name is Brad Reid. I'm the president of TIGM Modern Street Railways. We are a Chatsworth, California manufacturer, design, build, manufacturer of streetcars who operate around the world. Thank you very much to the commission for allowing me to speak before you. I'll try to keep it really brief, not too much technical, and just about how I want to highlight a few slides that really indicate how these vehicles can be attractive on this kind of an alignment. TIGM builds self-powered trams. We're the only company in the world that makes an electrified street railway tram that can operate a full day of passenger service without any wayside power of any kind. That means there's no overhead wire, and there's no opportunity charging stations required anywhere along the alignment. All the power for a full day of duty cycle is carried on board each car. So you can see in this slide at the top left, there is a 200 passenger articulated modern car. In the middle, there is a 100 passenger rigid body, single car body, modern car. And in the bottom are two heritage style cars, which we build in several different sizes, but they are from 35 to 100 passengers. They are heritage style. They look like they were built around the turn of the last century, but they all utilize the same propulsion system. Let's see if I can advance these. How does this work now? Advancing is which way? Oh, there we go. I'm sorry. There we go. So TIGM is an international transportation design, build, operate, and maintain firm. You can see here our projects around the world. We have provided PRT, LRT, and APM at various locations around the world. We're working in 5 countries currently. Our mission is to reduce streetcar infrastructure impacts and costs by eliminating electrification systems required off-board the cars. That's simply what we do. We are a turnkey design builder. We design, build, track everything from analysis to operations and maintenance, including track and rolling stock. To bring it down to a very concise statement, TIGM manufactures battery-dominant serial hybrid self-powered electric trams. Now, when I say battery-dominant serial hybrid, as Mark has indicated, 90% of our onboard operating energy is carried in the form of batteries. About 10% of the energy is carried in compressed hydrogen, which is then consumed by a hydrogen fuel cell, which actually charges the batteries while the vehicle is in service. The reason we do this is to keep the overall heat of the system down, to extend the range while being able to add energy quickly to the vehicle in the form of hydrogen as opposed to charging batteries. It works very well for us to provide 20 hours of service. Here are some of the cars in operation in Doha, Qatar, where we are involved in the world's largest lead project. It's called the Musharraf Downtown Doha project. We are installing and just this month entering into certified public operation. All of our cars are built according to European norms, the most comprehensive worldwide standards for railway applications. Some more pictures of the cars in operation. This is really hard to to advance this accurately. I keep jumping. Can you start this video? Here's a little video where you can see 3 of these 100 passenger cars. This is the car that we'd be bringing up for demonstration. The first thing you'll see here is our maintenance vehicle that maintains the tracks for us once a day. And here are 3 of the 100 passenger single body modern streetcars. These cars are completely silent. The cars have 16 flange lubricators on board that lubricate the front and back face of every flange in the car, eliminating all wheel noise. So you cannot hear these cars whatsoever, even when they're moving around 15-meter curves, extremely tight curves. I'm guaranteeing you that there is nothing even close to a 15-meter curve on the Santa Cruz Branch Line Railway. So all wheel noise has been eliminated. There is no motor on board any of these cars. They are absolutely silent. Here are 3 of the cars lined up, and what I'd like you to consider now is what we call virtual coupling. Using either the 200 passenger car or the 100 passenger car, we have an option called virtual coupler. Now, I travel around the world and consult with street railway systems all over the world. The major problem that I see is operators buying cars that are sized for their peak hour demand. What this means is during off-peak hours, most of these operators are deadheading up to 50% of their seats. That means they're operating with 50% capacity on the cars because the cars are too big. They're sized for peak hour, not for off-peak hour. So what we offer is what's called virtual coupling by the use of GPS, Bluetooth, and LiDAR. We can couple these cars together without any mechanical connection at the push of a button. So what this means is, if I can get to the next slide. There it is. By virtual coupler, we can scale the tram size. By non-mechanical vehicle coupling at the push of a button, the trams can be sized to reflect the demands of peak and off-peak hours. This reduces excessive driver costs and eliminates the deadheading of empty seats. As you can see here, utilizing a 100 and a 200 passenger car, we can build consists of from 100 to 400 passengers, each one of these consists being driven by a single driver. So in other words, if we can go to the next slide and advance once more. Here is an example of 3 cars coming from 3 separate alignments. They stop at a station, 2 of the drivers go home, and the tram drives off as a single 300 passenger car under the control of 1 driver without any mechanical coupling, ultra safe. Let's go to the next one and advance this one. Here's an example of two 200-passenger cars coming from two different alignments or two different schedules, and then one of the drivers goes home and the consist drives away as a 400-passenger car under the control of one driver. So this eliminates an enormous amount of driver cost, which is the highest cost in the operation and maintenance total for the year. Could we go to the next slide, please? TIGM also builds track. An example of our track construction here is in Doha, Qatar, where TIGM did everything curb to curb. Now I want to talk a little bit about the hydrogen fuel cell application. These cars represent the world's first zero carbon transportation system when we utilize renewable energy to create hydrogen from the electrolysis of water, compress it, and use it on the cars to charge the batteries while we're in operation. We provide for our clients a hydrogen electrolysis unit, which produces a set amount of hydrogen per day, utilizing water as the feedstock. We separate the water into hydrogen and oxygen. We compress it and distribute it to the cars once per day, utilizing a dispensing appliance which operates just like an automobile gasoline dispenser, dispenses hydrogen at either 350 or 700 bar to the vehicles. Next, please. Now, here is an example of a 24 kilogram per day hydrogen electrolysis unit and its dispensing appliance as we delivered it to the city of Dubai for the first hydrogen fueling station in Dubai for the Dubai trolley system, which is a heritage operation, heritage-looking cars that are really the most technologically advanced streetcars on the planet, utilizing battery-dominant hydrogen fuel cell propulsion system. Here's our renewable energy-based self-powered tramway system philosophy. Now, we've been able to achieve this in Texas and in Aruba utilizing solar and wind power. We harvest renewable energy and sell it to the grid at peak hour prices. Now, at off-peak hour, we buy that energy back at off-peak hour prices, thereby becoming a profit center for the operator as well as a zero carbon energy system. We use that renewable energy to operate our hydrogen generation plant, which operates 24 hours per day, providing stock hydrogen to our compression and dispensing unit. So once per day, we utilize renewable energy to charge our advanced battery systems, hydrogen to power our hydrogen fuel cells, plus the regenerative braking that is harvested all day long. These three power sources power heritage and modern streetcars for a 20-hour service day, supplying the world's first zero carbon public transportation system. That's what we do. Thanks a lot for letting me speak to you. I hope you could be a perfect application along the branch line railway. Thank you.
Thank you for that presentation. Commissioner Gonzalez.
Yeah, I just have a, oh, thank you. Thank you for the presentation. It was a good presentation. I got to ride with one of these in Vegas. It was really nice. But one of my concerns is that we're not going to have a demonstration in Watsonville. And I don't see reasons why we wouldn't be able to do something like that from Lee Road to Manresa Beach and back, because it's just for a demonstration. And I think it's important that Mid-County and South County individuals give people the opportunity to ride on one of these and not have to commute to Santa Cruz to get on the demonstration.
That was one of my main concerns when they originally came and proposed, was that, you know, how could we include Watsonville in the equation? Unfortunately, between Watsonville and Manresa Beach is the slide at Harkin Slough. So until that slide is cleared and that section of track is repaired, there's no pathway from Watsonville to Manresa Beach. And then also these vehicles, it's important to know, is really not compatible with freight. So to actually have a demonstration just in downtown Watsonville, it would not be possible with freight on the line.
Any other questions? Commissioner Kaufman Gomez.
Being non-compatible with freight because of the way it's set up now, and this would then still take conversion if the freight in this were to share line, or what makes it not compatible for right now?
Streetcars are not compatible with freight because they're much lighter weight, and the FRA has concerns about their crashworthiness. You can correct me or add on to that if you want.
I think through with my discussions with Progressive, the Federal Rail Association does not permit passenger cars on an active freight line. You need to have what's called temporal separation, which is actually physically separating. In fact, our discussion with that organization on Roaring Camp is you actually have to have a physical switch that absolutely under no circumstance can one of their trains roll into this area. So, it could be possible if there's a section of track that's not being used to possibly do a drop-off at an open house in Watsonville. We certainly would want to look at something like that. But in terms of going on an active track, freight track, Progressive has been very clear that not going to happen.
Okay. Just a question for RTC. The Pacific Rail only goes up to Walker Street. They don't go beyond Ohlone Way, right? On their freight rail? Because, there's nothing to deliver after Ohlone.
They do go all the way to Couch Distributing, which is
Right on Lee Road, on the other side of Lee Road.
Exactly.
Can we do it on the other side of the demonstration? Because the tracks do jump the street.
That's where it was just explained that we would actually have to have a way that there was a switch or some other mechanical device that prevented the rail line from actually connecting. Is that correct?
That's correct. Yeah. There has to be, based on the past accidents, they're very strict about having this temporal separation. And under no circumstances is there any way at all for the freight trains to mix with passenger trains. So there has to be some type of, or there could be a switch that I think would do it, but we'd have to look at the regulations there on how that would apply. The Federal Rail Association seems to be very supportive of passenger rail on their tracks, but it's a question of going through. You may have to go to Washington D.C. and whatever. That can take some time. So that's why we've kind of pushed this out to possibly spring because of those types of approvals. But we're certainly open to any suggestions on how to make that happen. We want to see Watsonville because frankly, if there's going to be any kind of dense urban transportation, Watsonville would be a place where folks would come from, and the housing is a little bit less expensive there, and it seems to be natural to have passenger service out there. But for the point of this demonstration, it looks like it's probably just going to be Santa Cruz area.
Commissioner Schifrin.
Yeah, I would just, in the interest of time, since the commission would like to have a demonstration in Watsonville as well as North County, to just ask staff to do whatever they can, working with the company to see if there's any way to make a Watsonville demonstration.
Commissioner Leopold.
Thank you for the presentation. When there have been discussions about rail and people have seen the steam locomotives or even the DMUs, there's been concern in the idea that there's a train that is so energy efficient and so low impact and zero emissions and quiet is. I didn't realize there was something out there. So I think that the community would be very interested in seeing this demonstration, and I support it. It was kind of unclear to me about the time of the year in which this was going to happen. There's talk about November and then talk about spring. And do you have any thought about how you would encourage people to go to use this? Would it go particular places, or would there be a theme?
Yeah, I think the question of November through spring, it's really on the spring side of it, it'd be Roaring Camp and their operational schedule. We want to try and catch this before they start operating at this point. In terms of November, that's when the demonstration car will be ready. So really, if the commission decides to proceed with this, we'll get right on the FRA approval, get that waiver going. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, I was just trying to, in January, we don't. It's the off season, right? and whether people want to go from Santa Cruz to Capitola or Live Oak or whatever. I'm not sure how that works, and maybe spring is a better time, but this is an area which I do not have expertise.
Yeah, so I think one of the things I did mention is we're playing a media outreach and a stakeholder outreach to really get people to see these demonstrations occurring. We want to encourage folks that are bicyclists to come by and take a look at it to see how this vehicle goes down the track and how compatible it would be with the varied uses. So we do anticipate a lot of media outreach on this track, on this demonstration, because ideally the value of a demonstration like this is to get everybody who has the interest in this at all to come to these things. So if it's a week demonstration, we'll have 2 full weekends so that we understand it's not tourist season at that point, but it is commuter season all year round. So so you're basically hitting the folks that would use this on a daily basis, and you know 200 folks per car potentially could take 200 folks per train trip off of one.
Sure. Thank you very much. I look forward to seeing this continue.
Yeah, thank you for your presentation. They're beautiful, eye-opening. I look forward to seeing something. I have questions about capacity. I think we heard a couple ranges from 35 to 100 for a heritage car, and I think I heard 100 to 200 in a car, and then I heard something about bicycles, of course. So I'm wondering about why there'd be a difference in how many passengers, and also what's the trade-off? Is there a simple way to say what the trade-off is between allowing bicycles on a car and how many passengers what the level of passengers would be reduced correspondingly?
So Brad will come up and address. So bicycle racks on the outside, I believe, or however it's configured, and then also the capacity of the trains.
Yeah, each individual car has its set capacity, but the passenger capacity of each car can be customized for the client. So in a lot of cases, we design interior. First of all, we have to be ADA compliant. So we have to have wheelchair berths on each car, depending on the size of the car. So in the car that you see here up on the screen, this is a 100 passenger capacity car. It has a large low floor area that will accommodate 2 wheelchairs or 5 bicycles on the low floor area inside the car. We also have exterior racks that can be added to the outside of the car. Now, these are single-ended cars. They can be designed as double-ended cars, which means they can reciprocate. They can go both directions on the alignment without being turned around. That will eliminate three passenger seats. Now, when I talked about from 100 to 400 passenger capacity, that is a matter of joining several cars with our virtual coupler. Now, the smaller capacity, like I mentioned, a 35 passenger, 45 passenger, that would be the smallest car we make, which is a single deck 36-foot heritage streetcar. It's a shotgun loading crossbench style that was popular in about 1911. Then we have a 40-foot version of that. Then we have a 40-foot double-deck car, which can go up to 100 passenger capacity. Now, if we're going to put inside luggage and bicycle capacity, that will reduce the seated passenger capacity by a certain fraction. So it's really a matter of design. What we would be demonstrating here would be a 100 passenger car similar to this. It would be all white. The cars you see with the different colors on them, those are full body wraps, and they can be changed out. We deliver white cars and then we wrap them with various color and graphic patterns depending on what the client wants.
And would your demonstration include capacity for bicycles? Because I know you mentioned wanting to invite cyclists as well.
Sure.
Right?
Yeah, inside, yeah.
Commissioner Bertrand.
3 questions. The 88, does the offloading and onloading meet whatever, height there's in the area, or do you have to have set platforms?
Well, it depends on the project here. Obviously, we don't have any platforms in this case. This particular car is a 280 millimeter low floor, which is about 11 inches. So in permanent installation, we build an 11-inch curb, and the car loads flush to the curb. What we would do here is build a wooden platform which would have an ADA ramp at the ADA slope provided, and the wheelchairs would board level to the low floor section of the car, the wheelchair section of the car.
Okay.
There would be temporary platforms, wooden platforms built and painted in locations.
Okay. In terms of feeding back into the power grid here, how's that managed?
I'm sorry?
In terms of feeding back into the power grid here?
Charging the batteries. Yes, we would provide a generator to charge the batteries while we're on site.
In terms of when you have a light air configuration so that a car is following without a driver,
Yes.
when you're going down the hill, how is that managed with regenerating the batteries?
All motors, there's a motor on each axle in the car. Each motor is either a generator or a motor, and it's controlled by torque controls that the driver has. So in the case of virtually coupled cars, the driver controls the torque commands for each motor on each axle of the entire consist. So the entire consist will be powered and regenerating under the command of the driver at the lead car.
So with the driver in command, there could be a lag issue here because there has to be coordination between one car's momentum and the other car slowing down.
It's all done through programming. There's a PLC that controls through, as I said, Bluetooth, LiDAR, and GPS.
That's a communication mechanism.
Right,
Okay,
exactly.
so a computer will control this, so there's no...
Exactly.
Okay, great.
No, there's no
How
lag.
close do they have to be?
It's a programmable distance. So
It is a-
normally we run them at about 1 to 3 meters.
1 to 3, and so that would vary depending on the slope?
Yeah, and depending on the local regulations.
And okay. Are there regulations for this? It's
Well,
kinda
there are
new.
guidelines.
Guidelines,
There are,
okay.
especially in the EN, the European norms, there are guidelines for close spotting of headways.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Going to go and open up to the public, see what they have to say. Thank you.
Hi, Brian Peoples with the Trail Now Executive Community. So when we look at capacity, you have to look at it from a systems engineering approach. You don't look actually at the capacity of the vehicle. You actually have to look at the entire line. What's my throughput? So the study from the Unified Corridor study was trains going 45 miles an hour, 60 times a day. So, and you're on a single track. So you don't just look at, this is our big, we could have 100-foot for 100 people. You don't do design that way. You have to look at the entire system and having a train. And so the other key point about this is you have to pull up the entire train tracks. You have to pull up the entire train tracks just to accommodate this unique rail line. Essentially, it's cheaper to pull up the tracks and put rubber wheels, use rubber wheel vehicles. So why would you go through the expense of saying we're going to have it as rail specifically, just to isolate that type of mode of transit? It doesn't necessarily make sense. Now for Watsonville, you guys are kind of in trouble already because right now the plans are going forward in discussions about using freight for the dump. The dump's going away, and so your opportunity to have trains going from Watsonville to Santa Cruz is being discussed as it quite possibly eliminated with the idea of a freight supplying the dump. So you got to start looking at those issues that are occurring. It is going on. The discussions are going on that way. So when you look at operational, do fixed rails work? Rubber wheels. The study showed that rubber wheel vehicles actually are far more effective by 7 times, and it's significantly less expensive. So what we're encouraging you to do is be clear to the public. So you're going and running off and going to demonstrate this product, but there's a lot of costs that you're not sharing, and you're trying to tell them this is the next thing, when really you have to pull the entire rails up and replace them for this system. And you're paying $500,000 to go study this. So to bring this forward to the pub prior to that study being completed is really somewhat disingenuous. You need to be, you can't go and say, hey, look at this great product and not be honest with what the real costs are and the capacity of that system is. Because we know that fixed rails on that single track is not as effective as rubber wheels. Thank you.
Thank you.
Do we get to rebut?
I'm gonna let the public, we're gonna let the public speak all the way through here. Sir, you waited long enough. Come on up and address us.
Yeah,
Okay.
I'm Lawrence Freitas. I live in Aptos. I live near the tracks. I voted yes in 1991 in June for Prop 116. I don't want my yes vote to go to waste in this county. I think this is a great idea. Also, I like the idea that they're offering to do the maintenance for the track. And I know I checked out in the mid-90s with Southern Pacific. I called up their office and I asked them the cost of fixing the track from Class 1 to Class 2. It was relatively inexpensive. I can't remember the exact numbers, but it was way less than widening the freeway 1 mile. I'll say that much. So, you're talking about a simple upgrade so that you could have trains going 25 miles per hour on the track instead of 12 or 15. Now, I know they're a mess right now because of all the weeds growing on them, but we need to fix the tracks. That wouldn't be all that expensive. We have a company here that's willing to do the maintenance and whatever else needs to be done on the track to make it viable, to make it work. I would hope that something could be worked out in Watsonville regarding the freight, even if it takes maybe doubling the track there. One other thing is on Mondays, I'm down in Monterey at one of the big tourist attractions. I would love to see a day where from the west side of Santa Cruz all the way down to the old train station in Monterey, this train is actually operating between both cities. That would take a lot of cars off of Highway 1. Thank you.
Thank you for those comments.
Hi, Jessica Evans from Santa Cruz. So a couple different things. I want to urge you to accept this extremely generous offer from TIGM to do a demo. I think it would be really exciting for the people of Santa Cruz to be able to see the possibilities of the use of the branch line for a real mass transit service. And I also wanted to just make a suggestion that maybe some kind of you can bring in these big concrete barricades. So it's possible that maybe track division, temporal separation with a physical barrier could be done with a concrete barricade on the track to allow a demonstration in Watsonville. And then the other thing I was going to say is if that's not possible, I know that you're bringing these trains in on trucks. Maybe just set it on a platform in the city of Watsonville. It doesn't have to be on the track. Allow people there to see the possibilities. It's really important that we reach out to people in South County. When I do, when I go out and talk to people about the rail line, when I talk to them about mass transit options, I say Watsonville to Santa Cruz, because that's what we're talking about. We're talking about allowing people to come from Watsonville to Santa Cruz and then go home to Watsonville. That's going to be the major users. So the other thing I want to just mention is that, of course, having this demonstration meets our obligation to Caltrans that we made when we got the grant to purchase the branch rail line, that we would start working on passenger service, and that's really important. And finally, I'd like to suggest that you may need to look at having larger cars that have increased bicycle capacity beyond the 5 bikes on the interior, because we have year-round commuters, and I think that you will see extremely high adoption by bicyclists, and we may need to have larger cars that have more bicycle capacity. That's what happened with the Smart Train in Petaluma. They had to go out and redo their cars with increased bike capacity, and I know that you'll be able to do that, so just want to put that out there. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Tina Andrietta, and I live in Aptos. I'm excited. I live right across the street from the rail line, and some of my neighbors were really worried about the noise. Phenomenal. There isn't any noise. That's great. I just completely support it. It's been too many years. The costs keep going up. let's not have any more delays. This has been, what, a 20-plus year endeavor, and let's look at what that cost would have been 20 years ago. Let's, I'm not, I can figure out with the cost of living, et cetera. Let's move forward. Quiet, let's think about greenhouse gases, vehicles miles traveled. And I also ride my bike a lot. And a lot of my friends in Aptos won't ride their bikes because they're really afraid on Soquel Drive and McGregor Road. I do it, go down into the village of Capitola. And it would be so fantastic to ride from Seacliff to the west side. And I do it now on East Cliff, Pleasure Point. I'm confident enough to ride my bike, but a lot of my friends aren't. This would be phenomenal to go through it. A lot of times I go listen to music on Wednesday and Thursday nights in the summer, and during the middle of that, I ride my bike, but as the sun starts going down, then I'm a little bit less confident, and I take my car. And I know there's a lot of people in this county that support keeping the bicycle, pedestrian, and light rail. And lastly, let's not forget about Watsonville, and let's definitely not forget about our youth and millennials. And those young people, they embrace mass transit. They want to get out of their cars. And I'm a senior citizen, but let's not forget about the youth. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, Sally Arnold, Friends of the Rail and Trail. We are so excited about this, as you can imagine. Just bringing any demonstration vehicles to the rail line is just so important. We need to be able to envision something modern. Sometimes when we hear people objecting, they're like, well, we don't want coal-fired locomotives on those tracks. And it's like, yeah, nobody does. And this would be a real physical demonstration of a modern kind of vehicle. And I hope that this is just the beginning. I hope that you're able to bring many different kinds of modern light rail vehicles to Santa Cruz so we can see what our options are. And, the technology is changing so fast. I'm sure it'll be, different in a few years and better, I'm sure. So we're really eager to see this modern light rail here in town. And obviously, yeah, Watsonville is really important. It would be great if there could be some way to run it on a small section of track there with some kind of, safety barrier between the freight. But if not, at least bring the vehicle there so people in Watsonville can get on and see what the options might be in the future. And I know there were some concerns about, November or early spring being the off season, but I don't actually think that's necessarily a problem. The whole reason tourists are going to get on this train, whatever it is eventually, but we really want it for the locals who need to get around this county. And so doing it at a time when we have less tourist traffic and it'll be easier for the locals to ride it and get a feel for what is the possible is really excellent. And if there's anything that Friends of the Rail and Trail can do to help support this project and, get the word out so people get on this train when it gets to town, we are behind it and we're very excited. Thank you.
Thank you.
Barry Scott, I live in Aptos, and I'm on the Fort Board and a big advocate, as you know, of rail transit. I just checked the maps, and there are switches to our friends in Watsonville, switches at Olin Parkway and at Lee Road that might be helpful in getting a short demonstration there. I think it's important that we try to do that. What a marvelous time to have a demonstration train project. We've got the alternatives analysis to look at buses versus rail vehicles. Yet we don't have any real rail vehicles to compare our buses to. We can look outside and get on a bus in practically any direction, but there are no rail vehicles. So this is perfect timing. I think y'all need to have as many demonstrations as possible. The last time there was a demonstration project in this county, some of you may remember. You see these pins, the Flex Liner, and this one is the Santa Cruz Coastal Cruiser Train. This was a Regio Sprinter, a diesel multiple unit that came from Norway, I think. And the Flexliner, these were all in 1996. The Flexliner came in for one day. The Regio Cruiser came in for one day, and a third demonstration was a return of the Suntan Special. 1996. We haven't had anything like that since then. The Christmas trains, of course, were 1959 vintage locomotive pulled whatever, and left the community with the completely wrong impression of what trains would be like. So it's no wonder that there's some resistance to something. When a vehicle like this comes to town, and especially for more than one day, my goodness, and people get a chance to actually ride it, bring their bike on board, roll on to level boarding in a wheelchair for 2 weeks, and gotta like to see 4 weeks. This is going to be profoundly useful. So I thank you for hearing the presentation. I hope we get to see this thing soon. Thanks.
Thank you. Anybody else like to speak on this topic? Okay, I'll close the public comment. I just have a question for staff, just for clarification. Is this type of vehicle compatible on our tracks?
Yes, it is. I mean, it's a standard gauge track, and the vehicle is built for standard gauge.
I just wanted to clarify that. Commissioner Leopold.
Yeah, I appreciate the comments. Half the time we hear from critics saying, well, we got the line, you're not doing anything with it, shame on you. And then when we try to do something, they say, shame on you for bringing something that people might use the line. This demonstration, whether it be for 2 weeks or 4 weeks, will not require all the tracks to be ripped up. It will not require the laying of new track. There will be, wow.
That hasn't happened to you in a long time.
Some people complain that you speak.
So it's a very doable demonstration of a vehicle that people would like to see, a hydrogen battery hybrid like this, zero emission that doesn't make any noise. That meets a lot of the concerns that people have had. So I think it's great to do it. It does not affect the alternative analysis in whatever its final decision is going to be made, but it does give people at least some chance to experience something different. And if we want to make a decision at the end of the alternative analysis, we might have some better idea of what might be out there. So I look forward to this. I look forward to you bringing back an agreement.
Any other comments from commissioners? We're no action today. We're just receiving the presentation. Okay, thank you very much. I think you can tell by the flavor in the room that everybody was inspired by this, and I think it's something we're all looking forward to. So thank you.